Welcome. I'm Jill Jonassen with Red, Wine, and Blue. We're a community of women who use digital media and friend-to-friend organizing to change the world one suburb at a time. And one way we do that is through conversation. So I have these conversations with Jo Carducci, as in JoJo from Jers. And today we are delighted to be talking to Katie Paris, who's our founder, who is the person behind Red, Wine, and Blue. So we're so excited to have you here, Katie. Thank you for joining. And we're talking about Ohio. So Katie, let's just go there. Like, why do we need to be talking about Ohio in August? What's going on?
Oh my goodness, it's getting wild out here. And I know you know it, Jill, because we are from opposite ends of the state, but we've got one thing going on here. So we have an election day tomorrow here in Ohio. Early voting has been going on for a few weeks now, actually. And Ohioans are going to be voting on something called Issue 1. And Issue 1 is the only thing on the ballot, just one thing to vote on. And basically why we are voting on Issue 1 is because the Ohio State Legislature decided that we should have an election in August of an odd year. You know, there aren't usually even that many elections in an odd year, because they want to make it harder for citizens to be able to hold them accountable. So in Ohio and lots of other states, about 18 states, you can use citizen-led ballot initiatives. So basically when the voters feel like our politicians are not representing our views, which especially when you have problems with partisan gerrymandered districts like we do in Ohio and so many other places, sometimes we're not so well represented by our politicians. So, for example, on reproductive rights, you know, they want a total abortion ban. That's what our state legislature has passed in Ohio. That's not something I want. That's not what the majority of Ohioans want. So we, in November, are going to be voting on a constitutional amendment to protect reproductive rights for Ohioans. Well, the state legislature doesn't want us to pass that. So what we're voting on tomorrow is they have said, why don't we just make it harder for them to pass things like that? Why don't we make it harder for them to hold us accountable? So they're trying to change the rules in the middle of the game. For 112 years in Ohio, we can hold our politicians accountable through a citizen-led ballot initiative with a majority vote, you know, 50% plus one. This would change it so that we would have to have 60%, a super majority would have to support the ballot initiative in order to hold our politicians accountable. So that means that 41% of the state could actually trump, you know, the majority of the entire state. So it's a scary time. There's also a whole lot of other measures that are included in what we're voting on tomorrow, in addition to requiring a supermajority to instead of a majority to hold our politicians accountable. It also would make it a lot harder to really get anything on the ballot at all. It would require a certain, you know, signature threshold from every single county in the state, which would mean that if you didn't meet that signature threshold in one single county, basically one county could hold, you know, stop the entire rest of the state from being able to move forward with, you know, these really important initiatives that, again, are such an important way that we can use our voices in our democracy. These citizen-led ballot initiatives are so cool because they're like the most direct form of democracy. So we're working really hard on this one because, like, look, I want my kids to know that, like, your voice matters. I want them to see that, like, our voting matters, you know, that, like, if you, I mean, it's that fairness matters, you know, if you get together and the majority of the group says that this is what is fair, you should not be able to have a loud vocal minority go, nuh-uh, and then they get their way. So this is really a pretty basic principle. The Ohio legislature, unfortunately, has been taken over by some pretty extreme folks, and they are charging taxpayers $20 million to hold this election. Basically, like, give us $20 million so we can take away your voice. Kind of how it goes.
And that's the thing, $20 million. And didn't they vote earlier this year, the end of last year, to no longer have August elections?
That's right, because there was an August primary election last year, and the turnout was so low, I believe 8%, that they said, you know what, this is a waste of money. We really shouldn't have elections in August. Turnout is so low. It's not very democratic. So they made them illegal. And then they're like, oh, wait, we don't like what the voters want to do in terms of holding us accountable. So let's have one more of those elections and see if we can take away some of the power of the people. So it's hypocritical on every level. But you guys, I'm feeling good. I mean, I'm going to be nervous until we have the results of this for sure. But look, this is not a partisan issue. Like, turns out Democrats, independents, and most Republicans want to have a voice in our democracy. You know, we believe that the idea of one person, one vote works pretty well, you know? And so we're seeing people really come together from across the political spectrum, really working together. We're seeing turnout like nobody predicted. It's really exciting, actually.
Yeah, I mean, just from an outside perspective looking in, because I'm in New Jersey. I mean, Ohio is near and dear to my heart. I have family in Ohio. I've been there probably more than any other state. But the turnout you guys got for the signature collections, 700,000 signatures, like that is amazing. I mean, people, obviously, this is very important. Like you said, that's incredible. So impressive.
And I think that the enthusiasm we saw around the signature collection, and so that was to get enough signatures to qualify reproductive freedom to get on the ballot. And so we did qualify to get on the ballot for this November. And we're seeing that same enthusiasm that we saw people wanting to sign in terms of people coming out to vote to say, no, do not take away my voice. I want to vote for my reproductive freedom, and also other future issues too. I mean, this could impact minimum wage, all kinds of finally being able to fix, our gerrymandered districts and have a more nonpartisan process around redistricting. This isn't just about one issue. It's really about having a voice. So we are seeing tremendous turnout. Over 600,000 people had voted as of Friday, which is like edging up to like early voting numbers around like midterm type numbers, and they thought that, so this is massively more early voting than we saw last August. Even when we saw last May, Ohio had a really competitive GOP US Senate primary. And this is just way more turnout already for this on a ballot issue in August. So it's pretty exciting to see. I love to see people participating in the process. Although my favorite fact might be so far about what I've seen about the turnout is that over 56% of those who have voted so far are women.
Yes. It turns out we care about our reproductive health care.
Yeah. And
democracy.
And democracy.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, I'm nervous working, we're all working so hard throughout the red, wine, and blue community to talk to our friends and family and every single person we know to get out there and vote. I think it's going to be a big turnout tomorrow. Yesterday was the last day of early voting. As of Friday, I think the stat was 43% of red, wine, and blue members had already voted. I mean, that's amazing, and my expectation is that the other 57% will vote tomorrow. So if we're going for 100% turnout in the red, wine, and blue community. Many of these women who are not even involved politically at all very recently and are just so dedicated, not only getting out there and voting, but influencing everyone they know.
Yeah. And I'll say, it's men too, which is really exciting for me. Like, my husband is he is having conversations with people that he trains with. He's a triathlete. And he was telling me about conversations he's having with his like guy buddies. And they're like, yeah, well, that doesn't make sense. And like one of them texted him the other day and said, oh my gosh, the line here, early voting is so long. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, this guy's voting in August and he's voting early on a weekend. That's amazing. And then when we made the signature collection, like over 700,000, my brother-in-law texted me like, this is amazing. This is so great. And I'm like, this is good. Yes, we need men to care as well.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And I got to say, I'm not surprised your husband is so engaged knowing you, Jill, but yes, I mean, the fact that he's then getting other folks in his friend group to step up and care as much is incredibly encouraging. And we had a lot of men join us in signature collection to get reproductive rights on the ballot too. I mean, we ended up training over 1,100 volunteers to collect signatures, and like 90% of them actually did turn in signatures. It's just really an incredible rate of participation. I think that certainly renews my faith in our democracy. And I think that Ohio is a state that Trump won by 8 points twice. And I think that people sometimes oftentimes, a lot of times write off Ohio because of that. When it comes to protecting our democracy, protecting basic freedoms like reproductive rights. So I think we're starting to turn some heads here in Ohio. But there's no doubt that it's been interesting. I think in the last few weeks, the strategy on the sort of extremists, let's take away their voice aside, the pro issue one folks, the strategy has shifted. You weren't hearing much at all from them a few weeks ago. I think they were hoping to just kind of squeak by on low turnout. And then they started seeing all these people voting, breaking these, records or any expectation. And clearly the strategy has shifted. They are throwing out disinformation, just blatant lies about the campaign. They have nothing good to say actually about issue one. So they're just attacking all of us who oppose it. That seems to be the strategy, just like smear, lie. And they're just pumping up that disinformation machine. But to me, it shows like not only if they had anything good to say about issue one, like they would be saying that, but they don't. So instead they're going with this like smears and lies, which I think is revealing. And I'm seeing it really fire up our side, making people more enthusiastic to vote and turn out and see how important this is and what the stakes are. It also means that they're scared, right? They're scared of like the power of these women and men, Ohioans, all of us, coming together to speak up for ourselves.
I wanted to ask you about this 60% threshold because it's a very like intentional number, right? I mean, and it's obviously, I just want to also go like because the democracy destabilizing side of this is what like my brain just keeps like focusing on along with everything else. It's just so anti-democratic on its face. Where did they come up, would you guess, with this 60% threshold?
So we know that reproductive freedom is 6 for 6 in America. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned, it has appeared on the ballot 6 times. So either to protect reproductive freedoms or those who want to limit them, trying to further limit them within an individual state, and voters have said no to that. So either way, every time they've said yes to reproductive freedom. And the vote margin has usually been something between like 54% in favor of reproductive rights to like 58, 59% in favor of reproductive rights. We also know from polling specifically in Ohio, you see about 59% support for reproductive rights. So yeah, I mean, I think that they tried to kind of pretend like they didn't have a specific agenda in mind in terms of trying to limit access to reproductive freedom. But our Secretary of State recently admitted publicly that it was 100% about abortion for him. So, and the Reproductive Rights Ballot Initiative is even more popular. I mean, the 85% of independent women support the Reproductive Rights Ballot Initiative. Similar numbers for Democratic women and some Republican women as well. So they know that there's no way that they can win if the threshold stays at 50%. So if you can't win, change the rules, right? I mean, that's what's so scary about the times that we're living in. It's supposed to be like we all play by the same rules and, let the chips fall where they may. But they know that they can't win if that's the case. So it's moving the goalposts.
And Katie, I want to talk, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, like all the misinformation out there, and I'm seeing it, of course, living in Ohio, and you addressed something recently, a publication that's not even like a legitimate journalistic publication, but I just want you to talk to us a little bit about how you react to misinformation and how you talk to people when they say, well, I heard it was this, or I saw it was this, when you're like, no, that's not actually what's going on here.
Yeah. The lies they're using are so outlandish and absurd. I'm finding that I'm not actually having to do a lot of like, oh no, that's not actually true. It's more like, can you believe that they're saying this? Like, how, what? And again, that's where I'm seeing this kind of backfire on them because that pumps people up to be like, oh my gosh, if they're that desperate, if they'll lie about that, like, Look, what does that say about them? It certainly says more about them than it does about, us or anyone else they're attacking. No, I actually have, I've come to, there's this fake newspaper. I have it right here on my desk that is going around Ohio, outside of your community, near mine, outside of Columbus as well. So all over. So Buckeye Reporter, in Ohio, the Buckeyes, that's a thing, so this looks like a community newspaper, doesn't it? And here I am right here on the cover. Wait, sorry, we're mirrored.
Yep.
And so basically we're being maligned because we oppose issue 1. We want people to have a voice. We want people to be able to hold politicians accountable. I got to say, this photo they used of me on the front page, I've gotten so many compliments about this photo. I think, it's pretty cute. I look very friendly. My family actually took this photo of me in 2020. The Black Lives Matter sign in it is like a homemade one I made with my kids. And we took it because in 2020, we were doing this suburban housewives photo challenge where you'll remember Trump was talking about suburban women like we're 1950s housewives. Super like, talking down to us type way. And so we did this photo challenge where we posed in like aprons and with martinis like we were 1950s housewives, but we posed with Black Lives Matter signs and banned books to sort of say, these are what our values are. Like you can say what you want, but we're going to be who we are. These are what our values are. So anyway, they've used this picture of me and it's throughout the paper, and they have my picture alongside a photo of John Legend and Senator Sherrod Brown and Karl Marx.
Wait, Karl Marx? Like that guy's not alive, is he?
There's Karl. Wait, no.
I can't believe he's hanging out at your house.
Karl Marx, Sherrod Brown, John Legend, and me. And then the best part here is that this is what they call the red, wine, and blue mission statement in giant quotation marks, except it's not our mission statement. It's completely fabricated, like scare tactic, fear-mongering language. So they're basically like saying we're all a bunch of woke radicals. They have created Facebook ads out of these to promote these articles, which are also online. And the Facebook ads come from this group called Protect Kids Ohio. It has 22 likes on Facebook because it was clearly created like last week to promote these articles. They are calling our group, you guys, they're calling our group porn moms because we don't support banning books. And so any book that like talks about anything having to do with LGBTQ themes, books where there might be 2 dads or 2 anything is like considered very sexual to them. And so that is that again, that was not on my list for 2023. I thought that I would be called, or this group of hardworking women who give our time to these causes because we care so much about our families. Didn't see it coming, you guys. I got to tell you, I mean, it is, again, it's just firing people up. It's just like, if they there's no depth to how low they will go.
No. Oh, no. Speaking of disinformation, to sort of pick up on that point, there's a lot of disinformation about what is in the ballot measure in November. So I think that this is a really great opportunity for you to sort of debunk the lies and get what is on the ballot measure in November.
It is comprehensive protections for reproductive rights. It's restoring Roe v. Wade in Ohio. As we all know, when Roe was overturned, that put the issue back to the states. In Ohio, unfortunately, our state legislature immediately put a 6-week abortion ban into effect. Of course, most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. So it's a total abortion ban. It's currently stuck. It's like wending its way through the courts right now because it's been challenged for obvious reasons. But it will eventually, come back into law and deny access for women to an abortion. We also are threatened in terms of access to all kinds of reproductive health care in Ohio. There are many extremist Republican legislators on record actually saying that they would like to ban birth control as well. So basically what this amendment says is that individuals do have a right to make their own reproductive health care decisions, whether that has to do with fertility treatments, contraception, miscarriage treatment, as well as when it comes to whether or not it may be necessary to terminate a pregnancy. And so it's just saying that these decisions are better made by a woman and her doctor than by politicians, that these politicians in Columbus are not the best people to make those decisions, that it should be up to us along with our doctors. And the other interesting thing in terms of the disinformation being pushed is that folks on the other side are saying somehow that this takes away parents' rights, that somehow like children are going to be running off to get abortions like every other day for fun or something, and they'll be able to do that without any parental consent. Well, this will have no impact at all on parental notification laws in Ohio. There's absolutely no evidence of that, and experts say that that is not at all what would happen as a result of this. But of course, minors do need to be protected in terms of having reproductive rights. We saw the 10-year-old who could not get an abortion. She was raped. She could not get an abortion in Ohio. She would go to Indiana to get it. We don't want that to happen. So we do need to comprehensively protect the rights of any person who can get pregnant, including such an unfortunate situation like that. And I also it really bothers me that this is being weaponized as though this would hurt parents somehow. I don't have a daughter. I have 2 sons. But if I did have a daughter and she, was a teenager and got pregnant, who knows, whatever the circumstances were, I would want to be by her side, making that decision and figuring out what was best for her. And so the idea that somehow by passing by having a total abortion ban, that somehow that would be better for me as a parent. No, they would be taking away our choices. Like, let us make these decisions as parents with our children. These decisions need to be made by families, not by politicians in Columbus. So once again, they're just completely distorting the issue. And I have a problem with that as a parent.
Yeah, me too. And I do have I have a 14-year-old
I know you have a daughter. I think
she
about
just
that.
turned 14. She's going to be in high school, starting high school next week.
That's super real for you. Yeah,
it is. It's terrifying. And that's why I'm so incredibly grateful for Red, Wine, and Blue and, all of the partners that we've had to work really hard to get our rights protected. Jo, Katie, is there anything else you want to share before we head off? Besides vote, if you live in Ohio, make sure you vote tomorrow if you haven't already.
Yeah, I just want to thank Katie before she takes it over. I want to thank you for this. It's incredible. I'm so inspired by you always.
Right back at you, both of you. I mean, you said I'm the one behind Red, Wine, and Blue. It's just not true. It's all of us. It's the hundreds of thousands of women in this community. It's this team. It's the thousands of volunteers. And, going through this process, it's all the work that always makes me feel the most hopeful is when I'm on the ground, collecting those signatures, when I'm talking to women in our community and we are strategizing together about how to turn out our communities to vote. So I feel really hopeful. And to those of you who are in Ohio, if you haven't voted yet, this is like a non-negotiable. Like, text me, I'll watch your kids, whatever you need tomorrow to get out and vote. Seriously, I got you. Actually, seriously, anything. This community has your back. And if you don't live in Ohio, keep an eye on those returns tomorrow. And let's say a little prayer for democracy and many more good things to come for Ohio and all across this great country, for what happens when, a bunch of rabble-rousing women like ourselves get together and cause some good trouble.
Causing some good trouble. That's right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Definitely check us out at redwine.blue. We have all kinds of resources for you there. And if you're in Ohio, vote tomorrow. I will be voting tomorrow. So thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.